Hello everyone, in today's video we are covering a couple storms that we are tracking over the course of the next week. Before we get into the discussion about these storms, if you could please subscribe to our YouTube channel just to show us your support, we would greatly appreciate it. We'll have more videos like this going forward throughout the rest of the winter. Alright, so we are looking here at the European model. And we're going to start off by tracking a rainmaker for much of the East Coast, in fact pretty much all of the East Coast, as a low pressure system will develop in the south on early part of Friday morning here. And a lot of times during the winter months, I know we're not officially in winter yet, but a lot of times even during the month of December, these low pressure storm systems that develop along the coast here usually produce some type of wintry precipitation across the East Coast. This time around, there's just really not much cold air to work with, so this allows for just a primary rainmaker here for just about everywhere along the East Coast here. There's potential for some freezing rain in the interior. Let's see, this is Western Virginia here and parts of eastern West Virginia and the mountain areas. There could be a brief onset of some freezing rain, but it really doesn't appear to be too big of a deal. And taking this forward here into, this is now Friday night here, much of the East Coast is seeing some rain. General amounts of a quarter to upwards of an inch of rain is likely. Nothing too serious in terms of flooding, but just enough to make it a pretty damp couple of days on Friday and Saturday for many areas. And as the system begins to wind up in the Gulf of Maine here, this will begin to throw precipitation back into the interior, which could allow for some rain to change to snow across parts of western New York, and as well as Pennsylvania here, parts of northwest PA and the Laurel Mountains. Really, those areas, they may change to some snow here. Accumulations will be on the lighter side. There could be some areas that pick up a few inches, but most areas will be just seeing anywhere from a coating to a couple inches of snowfall on the backside of this system. And the European model is a little bit more aggressive than the rest of the model guidance we do look at here. So for right now, just maybe a couple inches of snow on the backside for parts of the mountainous terrain, as well as northwest PA and western New York here. Now, our attention now turns to the beginning of next week. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of a potential storm system that could produce some form of wintry precipitation for the much of the area going forward here into Monday and Tuesday, especially towards Tuesday. So here we're still looking at the European model, and we're going to take this out here to Monday morning. This is Monday, 7 a.m. We have a low pressure system that is beginning to gather its strength here over the south. And there's a good swath of snow here on the northern side of the system. There's plenty of cold air to work with, at least at the beginning of the storm. And when we take this out here into Monday afternoon, this low pressure is now, according to this, now we're still well, this is 114 hours out, so that's about 5 days out. So there will be many changes going forward. So this is just this run we're looking here, and this low pressure is right over the Kentucky and Tennessee border. So we do have a high pressure system that is sitting in Canada here, which will allow for some cold air to dam into the valleys here across the upper mid-Atlantic. And then of course your northwest side is the cold sector of the storm. And these areas will see at least an initial burst of some snow and some freezing rain as well if this particular model verifies. As well, of course, the northwest side will see pretty much all snow from this system. Like I said, they're the cold sector of the storm. So we're going to take this out here to Monday morning. I know many of our followers on our YouTube channel come from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, in those areas, and as well as New York. It does appear on the European model here that most of the region will start off as a period of snow Monday night. Now, this is where things can change drastically over the course of the next several days. to see who sees how much snow or how much rain. Just all depends on this track. So currently the European model has us tracking right over West Virginia, and eventually it cuts pretty much across southeast PA and then out to sea. This will allow many areas to change to a freezing rain mix and even plain rain for some areas. And northern Ohio, Indiana, central Ohio, or I'm sorry, central Indiana, these areas will remain all snow according to this run. But this is a rather, according to the European model, the precipitation rates stay at moderate at best instead of heavy, which allow for some snowfall totals to not be too significant, but more so on the moderate side. What is more concerning this particular run is the amount of freezing rain that falls over northern Maryland, parts of, let's see, that's West Virginia there, and much of Pennsylvania and parts of New Jersey. Some areas, according to this run, see well over a quarter inch of freezing rain, which would not be too great for those areas. That would be much more of an impact than the amount of snow according to this run. And of course our southern areas are seeing some rainfall. Now we're going to take this forward here out to, this is going to be Tuesday morning. You see this low pressure begin to head out to sea, and pretty much far interior northeast as well as northern Maine. Really don't see much from the system according to the European model. Now we're going to look at here, this is just the European snow map, just to give you a general idea of what kind of snowfall amounts we're looking at. And in general, of course, Missouri and those areas out in the central part of the United States see a little bit more than us on the East Coast here. General like 4 to 6 inches for the central Missouri area. But further out towards the east here, in general, like a 2 to 5 inch area of snow across much of Pennsylvania, northern parts of Virginia and West Virginia, the narrow strip here, and parts of central or southern New England. These areas could see anywhere from 2 to 5 inches according to the European model. Now this is not a forecast, it's just strictly by the European model, before any type of changeover to freezing rain. Now the freezing rain, again, like I said, is much more significant than the snowfall according to the European model. It is painting a picture of well over a quarter inch of ice, and anywhere in these darker shades of pink, even a ½ inch of ice showing up, and even almost let's say 8/10 of an inch of ice showing up in southeast PA. Now, from my prior experience, this is likely overdone. The European model is pretty known to overdo the amount of freezing rain when we're roughly the 4 or 5 days out from the actual storm. But regardless, freezing rain is a concern with this upcoming storm. While it is 4 to 5 days out, it does look like there's going to be some sort of frozen precipitation at least at the onset of the storm. Now we're going to look at here the GFS. This is the American model. This is a warmer version of the European model for this upcoming storm. Now it has our weekend storm here. Again, Friday and Saturday, much of the East Coast is seeing some rain. And then it will show some back-end snow showers across northwest PA and Ohio, western New York. Not as aggressive as the European model, but again, coating a couple inches is certainly possible for some areas in the higher elevations. But going forward here out to Monday morning, our system is already centered here over central Missouri. If you remember, I'm sorry, southern Missouri there. And if you remember, the European model had the low pressure right over the Kentucky and Tennessee border. Here, I'm going to take this out, go back to the European model for a second. It's a snowfall map. Let's check the hour 108 of the European model just to compare the differences here. So this is 108 of the European model, and now this is the GFS the same time. And you can see that it's much more west with the system. And this will allow for our system to, I'll do one more comparison. This will allow for a warmer scenario for much of us on the East Coast. However, if you're watching from the central part of the United States, especially around the Chicago area, northern Illinois, as well as parts of northern Indiana and Iowa, these areas get a heck of a snowstorm according to the American model here. And there's even an area of freezing rain across central Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois. But on the northern side, that's a pretty significant snowstorm for Chicago, Iowa, northern parts of Illinois there. And then the system begins to head off into parts of Indiana and western Ohio here. And there, even with this system tracking pretty far west, there's enough cold air in place that the beginning of the precipitation here is still frozen for much of Pennsylvania, whether that's snow, sleet, or freezing rain, and parts of southern New England here as well, going into, this is now Monday, 7 p.m. But you'll see there's really not much of an impact for our followers here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. A quick change over to rain and even barely any precipitation on the American model. And then one of the bigger differences here is the interior Northeast and part, as well as northern Maine here. These areas get a pretty good significant winter storm here going into Tuesday morning. Now, what does the GFS snowfall map look like? Much bigger difference than the European model. Again, like I said, those areas out west, and well, I should say the central part of the United States, they got a pretty heck of a snowstorm here. According to the American model, 6 to 10 inches is certainly possible. And then, of course, the interior Northeast sees a bit more snow than what they received on the European model. While many of us here are just dealing with anywhere from a coating to an inch or two before changing to rain. So these are the two systems we are tracking over the course of the next 7 days. We have the Rainmaker that is going to impact much of the East Coast Friday and Saturday. And then the bigger story is Monday night, or I should say Monday into Tuesday. We are tracking a potential winter storm, but just because we are still 5 days away, we have to monitor exactly what kind of track this storm is going to take. That will dictate whether what areas see rain and what areas see snow and what areas see frozen precipitation. So please stay tuned to our YouTube channel, and feel free to follow us on our Facebook page if you haven't already. And also, don't forget to download our app. We just recently went through a pretty big update with our app. It's brand new. If you haven't tried it, feel free. If you already have in the past, feel free to re-download it. It's definitely worth re-downloading, and we greatly appreciate any review you have for the app. So stay tuned for this upcoming couple storms here, and you guys have a great day.